Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravajakachari Satarasatashi Jagat Guru Siddhaswarup Ananda Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravajakachari Satarasatashi. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Shri Goho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopina Shyamakunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganges Mai Ki Jai. Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur's World Mission Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled Hare Krishna. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga Gaur Premananda. Namam Vishnu. Om Jnanatammarandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshulum Militam Jena Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Karamaya Dadati Swapadam. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual masters have opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto them. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who is established within this material world, the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, give me shelter at his lotus feet? Today we're reading from the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, 8th Canto, Chapter 18, Lord Vāmanadeva, the Dwarf Incarnation. Sukadeva Goswami said, after Lord Brahma had thus spoken, glorifying the Supreme Person, After Lord Brahma had thus spoken, glorifying the Supreme Lord's activities and prowess, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is never subject to death like an ordinary living entity, appeared from the womb of a deity. His 4 hands were decorated with a conch shell, club, lotus, and disc. He was dressed in yellow garments, and his eyes appeared like the petals of a blooming lotus. Purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. The word Amritabhu is significant in this verse. The Lord sometimes appears like an ordinary child taking birth, but this does not mean that he is subject to birth, death, or old age. One must be very intelligent to understand the appearance and activities of the Supreme Lord in his incarnations. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Janma karma chale vivyam eva yo veti vakpata. One should try to understand that the Lord's appearance and disappearance and his activities are all divyam, or transcendental. The Lord has nothing to do with material activities. One who understands the appearance, disappearance, and activities of the Lord is immediately liberated. After giving up his body, he never again has to accept a material body, but is transferred to the spiritual world. Tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam iti sarjana. So why is that? Why is it that one who understands the appearance and activities of the Lord never has to take birth again in the material world? Is it just some kind of fluke? Is it some kind of magic?
If you truly understand the activities of the Lord, that means you actually I mean, you have to be in devotional service to truly understand the activities of the Lord, right?
Right, exactly. You have to give up your envious nature. You have, in order to be able to understand who Krishna is, and some have some inkling of his glories. So it's not like it's some kind of weird mechanical process or whatever else. I mean, it's a very practical situation where that, just like you're saying, Eric, in order to understand, I mean, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, from him comes knowledge, understanding, and forgetfulness. So if one has maintained the consciousness where one is envious of Krishna and doesn't want to see Krishna and wants to usurp Krishna's position, then Krishna's not going to give you the understanding to see him as he is and to appreciate who he is. It's not like he's punishing us. It's because that's what we want. We want to remain in the illusion that we are somehow equal to or greater than Krishna. And as long as we're maintaining that mentality, we don't want to be in the spiritual world. We want to be in this world where we have a chance to become as powerful as we can become. Text 2. The body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, blackish in complexion, was free from all inebrities. His lotus face, decorated with earrings resembling sharks, appeared very beautiful, and on his bosom was the mark of Shivatsa. He wore bangles on his wrist, armlets on his arms, a helmet on his head, a belt on his waist, a sacred thread across his chest, and ankle bells decorating his lotus feet. An uncommonly beautiful garland of flowers decorated his bosom, and because the flowers were extremely fragrant, a large group of bees, making their natural humming sounds, invaded them for honey. When the Lord appeared, wearing the Kaustubha gem on his neck, his effulgence vanquished the darkness in the house of the Prajapati Kashyapa. At that time, there was happiness in all directions, in the reservoirs of water like the rivers and oceans, and in the core of everyone's heart. The various seasons displayed their respective qualities, and all living entities in the upper planetary system, in outer space, and on the surface of the earth were jubilant. The demigods, the cows, the Brahmins, and the hills and mountains were all filled with joy. On the day of Shravana Dwadasi, the 12th day of the bright fortnight in the month of Dhrada, when the moon came into the lunar mansion of Shravana, at the auspicious moment of Abhijit, the Lord appeared in this universe. Considering the Lord's appearance very auspicious, all the stars and planets, from the sun to Saturn, were munificently charitable. Purport. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, an expert astrologer, explains the word nakshatra trayada. The word nakashtra means the stars. The word tara in this context refers to the planets, and adya refers to the first one specifically mentioned. Among the planets, the first is Surya, the sun, not the moon. Therefore, according to the Vedic version, the modern astronomer's proposition that the moon is nearest the earth should not be accepted. The chronological order in which people all over the world refer to the days of the week, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, corresponds to the Vedic order of the planets and thus circumstantiates the Vedic version. Apart from this, when the Lord appeared, the planets and stars became situated very auspiciously, according to astrological calculations, to celebrate the birth of the Lord. It's kind of nice to know that different planets they all have predominating deities, and that they can be charitably disposed and offer their blessings and arrange themselves in certain positions to further benedict the human beings on wonderful occasions like the appearance of an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Text 6. O King, when the Lord appeared on Dwadasi, the 12th day of the moon, the sun was at the meridian, as every learned scholar knows. This Dwadasi is called Vijaya. Conch shells, kettle drums, panavas, and ankaras vibrated in concert. The sound of these and various other instruments was tumultuous. Being very pleased, the celestial dancing girls, Apsaras, danced in jubilation. The best of the Gandharvas sang songs, and the great sages, demigods, Manus, Pitas, and fire gods offered prayers to satisfy the Lord. The Siddhas, Vidyaharas, Kimparushas, Kinnaras, Charanas, Yakshas, Rakshashas, Suparnaras, the best of the serpents, and the followers of the demigods, all showered flowers on Aditi's residence, covering the entire house, while glorifying and praising the Lord and dancing. It's a lot of flowers. When Aditi saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who had appeared from her own womb, having accepted a transcendental body by his own spiritual potency, she was struck with wonder and was very happy. Upon seeing the child, Prajapati Kashyapa exclaimed, Jaya, Jaya, in great happiness and wonder. The Lord appeared in his original form, with ornaments and weapons in his hands. Although this ever-existing form is not visible in the material world, he nonetheless appeared in this form. Then, in the presence of his father and mother, he assumed the form of Vāmana, a Brahmin dwarf, a brahmachari, just like a theatrical actor. Purport. The word nata is significant. An actor changes dress to play different parts, but is always the same man. Similarly, as described in the Brahma Samhita 5:33 and 39, the Lord assumes many thousands and millions of forms. Advaitam achyutam anadim antarupa madayam purana parusham. He is always present with innumerable incarnations. Ramadi Murishu, Kala Namanena, Tishtan, Nanavararam Akrad Bhuvaneshu Kintu. Nonetheless, although he appears in various incarnations, they are not different from one another. He is the same person with the same potency, the same eternity, and the same spiritual existence. But he can simultaneously assume various forms. When Vāmanadeva appeared from the womb of his mother, he appeared in the form of Narayan, with 4 hands equipped with the necessary symbolic weapons, and then immediately transformed himself into a brahmachari, Vatu. This means that his body is not material. One who thinks that the Supreme Lord assumes a material body is not intelligent. He has to learn more about the Lord's position. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:9, Janma karma nachamevyam eva yo vetitattvata. One has to understand the transcendental appearance of the Lord in his original transcendental body, Satchidananda Vigraha. When the great sages saw the Lord as the brahmachari dwarf Vāmana, they were certainly very pleased. Thus, they placed before them Kashyapa Muni, the Prajapati, and performed all the ritualistic ceremonies, such as the birthday ceremony. Purport. According to Vedic civilization, When a child is born in the family of a Brahmin, the birthday ceremony, known as Jatakarma, is first performed, and then other ceremonies are also gradually performed. But when this Vāmanadeva appeared in the form of a Vatu or Brahmachari, his sacred thread ceremony was also performed immediately. At the sacred thread ceremony of Vāmanadeva, the sun god personally uttered the Gayatri mantra. Brihaspati offered the sacred thread, and Kashyapa Muni offered a new straw belt. Mother Earth gave him a deer skin, and the demigod of the moon, who is the king of the forest, gave him a Brahmadanda, the rod of a brahmachari. His mother, Aditi, gave him cloth for underwear, and the deity presiding over the heavenly kingdom offered him an umbrella. O king, Lord Brahma offered a water pot to the inexhaustible Supreme Personality of Godhead. The 7 sages offered him kusa grass, and Mother Sarasvati gave him a string of rudraksha beads. When Vāmanadeva had thus been given the sacred thread, Kuvera, the king of the Yakshas, gave him a pot for begging alms, and Mother Bhagavati, the wife of Lord Shiva and most chaste mother of the entire universe, gave him his first alms. Having thus been welcomed by everyone, Lord Vāmanadeva, the best of the brahmacharis, exhibited his Brahman effulgence. Thus, he surpassed in beauty that entire assembly, which was filled with great saintly Brahmins. After Lord Sri Vāmanadeva set a sacrificial fire, he offered worship and performed a fire sacrifice on the sacrificial field. When the Lord heard that Bali Mahārāja was performing Ashvamedha sacrifices under the patronage of Brahmins belonging to the Bhrigu dynasty, the Supreme Lord, who is full in every respect, proceeded there to show his mercy to Bali Mahārāja. By his weight, he pushed down the earth with every step. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Ahila Sarva Sarvrita. In other words, he is the proprietor of everything essential in this material world. Thus, although the Lord was going to Bali Mahārāja to beg something, he is always complete and has nothing to beg from anyone. Indeed, he is so powerful that in his full opulence, he pressed down the surface of the earth at every step. 21. While engaged in performing the sacrifice in the field known as Bhrigu Kacha, on the northern bank of the Narmada River, the Brahminical priest, the descendants of Bhrigu, saw Vāmanadeva to be like the sun rising nearby. O king, because of Vāmanadeva's bright effulgence, the priest, along with Bali Mahārāja and all the members of the assembly, were robbed of their splendor. Thus they began to ask one another whether the sun god himself, Sanat Kumara, or the fire god had personally come to see the sacrificial ceremony. While the priests of the Bhrigu dynasty and their disciples talked and argued in various ways, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāmanadeva, holding in his hands the rod, the umbrella, and a water pot full of water, entered the arena of the Ashvamedha sacrifice. Appearing as a Brahmin boy, wearing a belt of straw, a sacred thread, an upper garment of deerskin, and matted locks of hair, Lord Vāmanadeva entered the arena of sacrifice. His brilliant effulgence diminished the brilliance of all the priests and their disciples, who thus stood from their seats and welcomed the Lord properly by offering obeisances. Bali Mahārāja, jubilant at seeing Lord Vāmanadeva, whose beautiful limbs contributed equally to the beauty of his entire body, offered him a seat with great satisfaction. thus offering a proper reception to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always beautiful to the liberated souls. Bali Mahārāja worshipped him by washing his lotus feet. Lord Shiva, the best of the demigods, who carries on his forehead the emblem of the moon, receives on his head with great devotion the Ganges water emanating from the toe of Vishnu. Being aware of religious principles, Bali Mahārāja knew this. Consequently, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva, he also placed on his head the water that had washed the Lord's lotus feet. Report. Lord Shiva is known as Gangadhara, or one who carries the water of the Ganges on his head. On Lord Shiva's forehead is the emblem of the half moon. Yet, to give supreme respect to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Shiva placed the water of the Ganges above this emblem. This example should be followed by everyone, or at least by every devotee, because Lord Shiva is one of the Mahājans. Similarly, Mahārāja Bali also later became a Mahājan. One Mahājan follows another Mahājan, and by following the Parampara system of Mahājan activities, one can become advanced in spiritual consciousness. The water of the Ganges is sanctified because it emanates from the toe of Lord Vishnu. Bali Mahārāja washed the lotus feet of Vāmanadeva, and the water with which he did so became equal to the Ganges. Bali Mahārāja, who perfectly knew all religious principles, therefore took that water on his head, following in the footsteps of Lord Shiva. 29. Bali Mahārāja then said to Lord Vāmanadeva, O Brahman, I offer you my hearty welcome and my respectful obeisances. Please let us know what we may do for you. We think of you as the personified austerity of the great Brahmin sages. O my Lord, because you have kindly arrived at our home, all our forefathers are satisfied. Our family and entire dynasty have been sanctified, and the sacrifice we are performing is now complete because of your presence. O son of a Brahmin, today the fire of sacrifice is ablaze according to the injunction of the Shastra, and I have been freed from all the sinful reactions of my life by the water that has washed your lotus feet. O my Lord, by the touch of your small lotus feet, the entire surface of the world has been sanctified. O son of a Brahmin, it appears that you have come here to ask me for something. Therefore, whatever you want, you may take from me. O best of those who are worshipable, you may take from me a cow, gold, a furnished home, palatable food and drink, the daughter of a Brahmin for your wife, prosperous villages, horses, elephants, chariots, and whatever you desire. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 8th canto, 18th chapter of the Śrīmad Bhāgavatam entitled Lord Vāmanadeva, the Dwarf Incarnation. It's not mentioned here, but Acharyadas mentioned in one of his classes that Bali Mahārāja had a sister, and when Vāmanadeva entered as a young brahmachari, he was so attractive that she was also, just as Bali Mahārāja is attracted, everyone was attracted, everyone was so astonished to see this beautiful personality. And Bali Mahārāja's sister saw Vāmanadeva and she said, oh, I wish I could have a son like that. Then later on, after Vāmanadeva cheated Bali Mahārāja by taking everything away from him and then using his third step to push him back down into Patala Loka. His sister said, if I had a child like that, I would poison him. And so in Krishna's pastime, she became Putana and was going around poisoning children and tried to poison Krishna. Chapter 19. Lord Vāmanadeva begs charity from Bali Mahārāja. Sukadeva Goswami continued. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vāmanadeva, heard Bali Mahārāja speaking in this pleasing way, he was very satisfied. For Bali Mahārāja had spoken in terms of religious principles. Thus, the Lord began to praise him. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O King, you are, O King, you are indeed exalted, because your present advisors are the Brahmins who are descendants of Brigu, and because your instructor for your future life is your grandfather, the peaceful and venerable Prahlāda Mahārāja. Your statements are very true, and they completely agree with religious etiquette. They are in keeping with the behavior of your family, and they enhance your reputation. Purport. Prahlāda Mahārāja is a vivid example of a pure devotee. Someone might argue that since Prahlāda Mahārāja, even though very old, was attached to his family, and specifically to his grandson Bali Mahārāja, how could he be an ideal example? Therefore, this verse uses the word prashanta. A devotee is always sober. He is never disturbed by any conditions. Even if a devotee remains in grihastha life and does not renounce material possessions, he should still be understood to be prashanta, sober, because of his pure devotion to the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore said, Kiba vipra kiba nashi sudra kini naya, ye Krishna tattva veta se guru haya. Whether one is a Brahmin, a sannyasi, or a Sudra, regardless of what he is, he can become a spiritual master if he knows the science of Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 8:128. Anyone completely aware of the science of Krishna, regardless of his status in life, is a guru. Thus, Prahlāda Mahārāja is a guru in all circumstances. Here, his lordship Vāmanadeva also teaches sannyasis and brahmacharis that one should not ask for more than necessary. He wanted only 3 paces of land, although Bali Mahārāja wanted to give him anything he wanted. Text 3. I know that even until now, no one taking birth in your family has been poor-minded or miserly. No one has refused to give charity to Brahmins, nor, after promising to give charity, has anyone failed to fulfill his promise. O King Bali, never in your dynasty has the low-minded king been born, who upon being requested has refused charity to Brahmins in holy places, or a fight to Kshatriyas on a battlefield. And your dynasty is even more glorious due to the presence of Prahlāda Mahārāja, who is like the beautiful moon in the sky. Purport. The symptoms of a Kshatriya are given in Bhagavad Gita. One of the qualifications is the willingness to give charity, dana. A Kshatriya does not refuse to give charity when requested by a Brahmin, nor can he refuse to fight another Kshatriya. A king who does refuse is called low-minded. In the dynasty of Bali Mahārāja, there were no such low-minded kings. Text 5. It was in your dynasty that Hiranyaksha was born. Carrying only his own club, he wandered the globe alone, without assistance, to conquer all directions, and no hero he met could rival him. When delivering the earth from the Garbhodak ocean, the Garbhodak Sea, Lord Vishnu, in his incarnation as a boar, killed Hiranyaksha, who appeared before him. The fight was severe, and the Lord killed Hiranyaksha with great difficulty. Later, as the Lord thought about the uncommon prowess of Hiranyaksha, he felt himself victorious indeed. When Hiranyakashipu heard the news of his brothers being killed, with great anger, he went to the residence of Vishnu, the killer of his brother, wanting to kill Lord Vishnu. Seeing Hiranyakashipu coming forward, bearing a trident in his hand like a personified death, Lord Vishnu, the best of all mystics and the knower of the progress of time, thought as follows. Wheresoever I go, Hiranyakashipu will follow me, as death follows all living entities. Therefore, it is better for me to enter the core of his heart, for then, because of his power to see only externally, he will not see me. Lord Vāmanadeva continued, O king of the demons, after Lord Vishnu made this decision, he entered the body of his enemy Hiranyakashipu, who was running after him with great force. In a subtle body, inconceivable to Hiranyakashipu, Lord Vishnu, who was in great anxiety, entered Hiranyakashipu's nostril along with his breath. Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is already in the core of everyone's heart. Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam Hrideshir Janatishtati. Bhagavad Gita, 1861. Logically, therefore, it was not at all difficult for Lord Vishnu to enter Hiranyakashipu's body. The word Vigvignacheta, very anxious, is significant. It is not that Lord Vishnu was afraid of Hiranyakashipu. Rather, because of compassion, Lord Vishnu was in anxiety about how to act for his welfare. This is the nature of Krishna. And even though Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu are, in one sense, a special case, because they were Krishna's doorkeepers who had been cursed by the four Kumaras to take birth as Krishna's enemies for 3 births in the material world. And therefore, he already had this wonderful relationship with them as devotees. It doesn't matter. Krishna is always anxious, transcendently anxious for the well-being of all living entities. And when he saw that Hiranyakashipu was just completely blinded by anger at the death of his brother Hiranyaksha, he knew there was no way he could pacify him or calm him down. So it was better for him just to become invisible to him and let him chill out on his own for a while. A lesson many husbands have learned while dealing with their wives. Text 11. Upon seeing that the residence of Lord Vishnu was vacant, Hiranyakashipu began searching for Lord Vishnu everywhere. Angry at not seeing him, Hiranyakashipu screamed loudly and searched the entire universe, including the surface of the earth, the higher planetary systems, all directions, and all the caves and oceans. But Hiranyakashipu, the greatest hero, did not see Vishnu anywhere. Unable to see him, Hiranyakashipu said, I have searched the entire universe, but I could not find Vishnu, who has killed my brother. Therefore, he must certainly have gone to that place from which no one returns. In other words, he must now be dead. Purport. Atheists generally follow the Broda philosophy conclusion that at death, everything is finished. Hiranyakashipu, being an atheist, thought this way. Because Lord Vishnu was not visible to him, he thought that the Lord was dead. Even today, many people follow the philosophy that God is dead. But God is never dead. Even the living entity, who is part of God, never dies. Najayate mriyate va katachit. For the soul, there is never birth nor death. This is the statement of Bhagavad Gita 2:20. Even the ordinary living entity never takes birth or dies. What then is to be said of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the chief of all living entities? He certainly never takes birth or dies. Apo vivswanam atyatma, Bhagavad Gita 4:6. Both the Lord and the living entity exist as unborn and inexhaustible personalities. Thus, Hiranyakashipu's conclusion that Vishnu was dead was wrong. As indicated by the words, Yato Navarte Punam, there is certainly a spiritual kingdom, and if the living entity goes there, he never returns to this material world. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4:9. Tyakta deham punarjanma naiti mam iti sarjanam. Materially speaking, every living entity dies. Death is inevitable. But those who are karmis, jnanis, and yogis return to this material world after death, whereas bhaktas do not. Of course, if a bhakta is not completely perfect, he takes birth in the material world again, but in a very exalted position, either in a rich family or a family of the purest Brahmins. Suchinam Srimatam Gehi, just to finish his development in spiritual consciousness. Those who have completed the course of Krishna consciousness and are free from material desire return to the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yadgatvanan anartane tad dharma param mama. Here, the same fact is stated. Yato navartate pumam. Any person who goes back home, back to Godhead, does not return to this material world. It's also interesting how the materialistically minded person is so blinded by his arrogance that he thinks that he's the supreme. Therefore, Hiranyakashipu is feeling, if I can't find Vishnu, then he doesn't exist. Never occurs to him that Vishnu may be superior to him and be deciding not to be seen, right? Not wanting to appear to him for whatever reason. Doesn't even enter his consciousness. If I can't see him, then he doesn't exist. He must be dead because I am all powerful.
It's kind of that don't believe in God, atheists. They try to put that question forth, you know what I mean?
What, show me God question?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just so, Prabhupada answers it so wonderfully, you know. Who are you to see God? What's your qualification? You can't even go see the President of the United States, you know. You can't even, you know what I mean? You can't even get into a fancy restaurant and demand to be seated without a reservation. Yet here you are demanding to see God with no qualifications. Yeah, it's just, but they can't hear it. I mean, my brother, Lonnie, he's not antagonistic, but he's that way too. He says, if I could see God, if God walked up and shook my hand, he said, I would believe in God, But the fact is, I can't appreciate his presence. I don't see him. I don't feel him. I don't hear him. Therefore, I can't accept his existence. What can you say to someone like that? My God, look around. Everything that exists. Where did this all come from? Your body is so amazing. So many amazing things in this world. They're all obviously made by some intelligent being. There's some kind of thing going on here, and you can't see it. It's just amazing. Krishna's illusory powers is so incredible. Text 13. Hiranyakashipu's anger against Lord Vishnu persisted until his death. Other people in the bodily concept of life maintain anger only because of false ego and the great influence of ignorance. Purport. Generally speaking, even though the conditioned soul is angry, his anger is not perpetual, but temporary. It is due to the influence of ignorance. Hiranyakashipu, however, maintained his enmity and his anger against Lord Vishnu until the point of his death. He never forgot his vengeful attitude toward Vishnu for having killed his brother Hiranyaksha. Others in the bodily concept of life are angry at their enemies, but not at Lord Vishnu. Hiranyakashipu, however, was everlastingly angry. He was angry not only because of false prestige, but also because of continuous enmity toward Vishnu. And this continuous enmity was actually a gift from Krishna. Krishna had blessed him with that enmity so that he could take this role as these demons in 3 births to give him someone to fight with in the material world and set up these wonderful pastimes to allow the devotees to see the greatness of the Lord. Text 14. Your father, Virachana, the son of Mahārāja Prahlāda, was very affectionate toward Brahmins, although he knew very well that it was the demigods who had come to him in the dress of Brahmins. At their request, he delivered to them the duration of his life. Purport. Mahārāja Virachana, Bali's father, was so pleased with the Brahmin community that even though he knew that those approaching him for charity were the demigods in the dress of Brahmins, he nonetheless agreed to give it. 15. You also have observed the principles followed by great personalities who are householder Brahmins, by your forefathers and by great heroes who are extremely famous for their exalted activities. O King of the Daityas, from your majesty, who come from such a noble family and who are able to give charity munificently, I ask only 3 paces of land to the measurement of my steps. Purport. Lord Vāmanadeva wanted 3 paces of land according to the measurement of his footsteps. He did not want more than necessary, but although he pretended to be an ordinary human child, he actually wanted the land comprising the upper, middle, and lower planetary systems. This was just to show the prowess of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 17. O King, controller of the entire universe, although you are very munificent and are able to give me as much land as I want, I do not want anything from you that is unnecessary. If a learned Brahmin takes charity from others only according to his needs, he does not become entangled in sinful activities. Purport. A Brahmin or sannyasi is qualified to ask charity from others, but if he takes more than necessary, he is punishable. No one can use more of the Supreme Lord's property than necessary. Lord Vāmanadeva indirectly indicated to Bali Mahārāja that he was occupying more land than he needed. In the material world, all distresses are due to extravagance. One acquires money extravagantly and also spends it extravagantly. Such activities are sinful. All property belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all living beings who are sons of the Supreme Lord have the right to use the Supreme Father's property, but one cannot take more than necessary. This principle should especially be followed by Brahmins and sannyasis who live at the cost of others. Thus, Vāmanadeva was an ideal beggar, for he asked only 3 paces of land. Of course, there's a difference between his footsteps and those of an ordinary human being. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, by his inconceivable prowess, can occupy the entire universe, including the upper, lower, and middle planetary systems, by the unlimited measurement of his footsteps. Bali Mahārāja said, "O son of a Brahmin, your instructions are as good as those of learned and elderly persons. Nonetheless, you're a boy, and your intelligence is insufficient. Thus, you are not very prudent in regard to your self-interest." Purport. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, being full in himself, actually has nothing to want for his self-interest. Lord Vāmanadeva, therefore, had gone to Bali Mahārāja for his own self-interest. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 5:29, Bhoktaram Jagnatapasham Sarva Loka Maheshwaram. The Lord is the proprietor of all planets, in both the material and spiritual worlds. Why should he be in want of land? Bali Mahārāja rightly said that Lord Vāmanadeva was not at all prudent in regard to his own personal interest. Lord Vāmanadeva had approached Bali not for his personal welfare, but for the welfare of his devotees. Devotees sacrifice all personal interests to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similarly, the Supreme Lord, although having no personal interest, can do anything for the interest of his devotees. One who is full in himself has no personal interest. And this is why one can take complete shelter of the pure devotee of Krishna. Because the pure devotee of Krishna has no desires to be fulfilled. He is completely full in his love and his service, his loving service to Krishna. Therefore, we have nothing to offer him. Therefore, you never need to worry about the devotee of Krishna exploiting you. He's simply interested in your well-being. Why? Because Krishna is also interested in your well-being. And the devotee of Krishna wants to do nothing but try to satisfy the desire of the Lord. So how could he possibly have any interest in exploiting anyone? Text 19. I am able to give you an entire island because I am the proprietor of the 3 divisions of the universe. You have come to take something from me and have pleased me by your sweet words. But you're asking only 3 paces of land. Therefore, you are not very intelligent. Purport. According to Vedic understanding, the entire universe is regarded as an ocean of space. In that ocean, there are innumerable planets, and each planet is called a dweep, or island. When approached by Lord Vāmanadeva, Bali Mahārāja was actually in possession of all the dweeps, or islands in space. Bali Mahārāja was very pleased to see the features of Vāmanadeva and was ready to give him as much land as he could ask. But because Lord Vāmanadeva asked for only 3 paces of land, Bali Mahārāja considered him not very intelligent. 20. A small boy, one who approaches me to beg something, should not have to ask anything more anywhere. Therefore, if you wish, you may ask from me as much land as will suffice to maintain you according to your needs. So this is also due to the arrogant nature of the materialist. They're very proud of what they so-called possess, right? Bali Mahārāja is thinking, you fool. Don't you know who you're talking to? Like he's the godfather, right? I own everything, right? I can give you anything. You know, you're being silly here. And so he wants to show, he wants to impress, he wants to, you know, be the big man who can afford to give away an entire, planet just because somebody asked him for it. And he actually feels insulted that Vāmanadeva is only asking for 3 paces of land, because Vāmanadeva is indirectly saying, so what? You got the whole universe, who cares? What's the value of it? All I need is 3 paces of land, maintain my body, whatever, Everything else is just simply a disturbance and unnecessary burden. Here you think you're so great because you're commanding the entire universe, but actually you're not. You're simply suffering because of it. Text 21. The personality of Godhead said, my dear king, the personality of Godhead said, my dear king, even the entirety of whatever there may be within the 3 worlds to satisfy one's senses cannot satisfy a person whose senses are uncontrolled. Purport. The material world is an illusory energy to deviate the living entities from the path of self-realization. What a wonderful definition, yeah? The material world is an illusory energy to deviate the living entities from the path of self-realization. Anyone who is in this material world is extremely anxious to get more and more things for sense gratification. Actually, however, the purpose of life is not sense gratification, but self-realization. Therefore, those who are too addicted to sense gratification are advised to practice the mystic yoga system, or Ashtanga yoga system, consisting of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, and so on. In this way, one can control the senses. The purpose of controlling the senses is to stop one's implication in the cycle of birth and death. As stated by Rishabdev, Numam pratmata kurate vikarma yad indriya pritaya aprinoti na sadhu manye dapa atmanoyam ashan api klishada ashideha. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. Bhāgavatam 5.5.4. Thus, according to Rishabhdev, the human beings in this material world are just like madmen, engaged in activities which they should not perform, but which they do perform only for sense gratification. Such activities are not good, because in this way one creates another body for his next life as punishment for his nefarious activities. As soon as he gets another material body, he is put into repeated suffering in material existence. Therefore, the Vedic culture, or Brahminical culture, teaches one how to be satisfied with possessing the minimum necessities in life. To teach this highest culture, Varnashram Dharma is recommended. The aim of the Varnashram divisions, Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Brahmachari, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas, is to train one to control the senses and to be content with the bare necessities. Here, Lord Vāmanadeva, as an ideal brahmachari, refuses Bali Mahārāja's offer to give him anything he might want. He says that without contentment, one could not be happy even if he possessed the property of the entire world or the entire universe. In human society, therefore, the Brahminical culture, Kshatriya culture, and Vaishya culture must be maintained, and people must be taught how to be satisfied with only what they need. In modern civilization, there is no such education. Everyone tries to possess more, and everyone is dissatisfied and unhappy. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore establishing various farms, especially in America, to show how to be happy and content with minimum necessities of life and to save time for self-realization, which one can very easily achieve by chanting the Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 22. If I were not satisfied with 3 paces of land, then surely I would not be satisfied even with possessing one of the 7 islands, consisting of 9 varshas. Even if I possessed one island, I would hope to get others. We have heard that although powerful kings like Mahārāja Prithu and Mahārāja Gaya achieved proprietorship over the 7 dweeps, they could not achieve satisfaction or find the end of their ambitions. One should be satisfied with whatever he achieves by his previous destiny, for discontent can never bring happiness. A person who is not self-controlled will not be happy even with possessing the 3 worlds. Report. If happiness is the ultimate goal of life, one must be satisfied with the position in which he is placed by providence. This instruction is also given by Prahlāda Mahārāja. Sukham anidriyanam in daitya deha yogena dihinam sarvarata labhyate davyad yata dukkam atyatna. My dear friends, born of demoniac families, the happiness perceived with reference to the sense objects by contact with the body can be obtained in any form of life, according to one's past fruitive activities. Such happiness is automatically obtained without endeavor, just as we obtain distress. Bhāgavatam 7.6.3. This philosophy is perfect in regard to obtaining happiness. Real happiness is described in Bhagavad Gita 6.21. Sukham atyaniktatam yatat buddhi grahayam atriyayam veda yantra chaivyam Stitas kalati tatvataha. In the spiritually joyous state, one is situated in boundless transcendental happiness and enjoys himself through transcendental senses. Established thus, one never departs from the truth. One has to perceive happiness by the super senses. The super senses are not the senses of material elements. Every one of us is a spiritual being, aham brahmasmi, and every one of us is an individual person. Our senses are now covered by material elements, and because of ignorance, we consider the material senses that cover us to be our real senses. The real senses, however, are within the material covering. Dehinosmin yata dehi. Within the covering of the material elements are the spiritual senses. Sarvopati virnat muktam tat patravena nirlanam. When the spiritual senses are uncovered, by these senses we can be happy. Satisfaction of the spiritual senses is thus described. Harishikena harishikesa sevana bhaktir uchate. When the senses are engaged in devotional service to Harishikesh, then the senses are completely satisfied. Without this superior knowledge of sense gratification, one may try to satisfy his material senses, but happiness will never be possible. One may increase his ambition for sense gratification and even achieve what he desires for his for the gratification of his senses, but because this is on the material platform, he will never achieve satisfaction or contentment. According to Brahminical culture, one should be content with whatever he obtains without special endeavor, and should cultivate spiritual consciousness. Then he will be happy. The purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to spread this understanding. People who do not have scientific spiritual knowledge mistakenly think that the members of the Krishna consciousness movement are escapist, trying to avoid material activities. In fact, however, we are engaged in real activities for attaining the ultimate happiness in life. If one is not trained to satisfy the spiritual senses and continues in material sense gratification, he will never obtain happiness that is eternal and blissful. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam 5.5.1 therefore recommends Tapo divyam puktara yena statvam shudheyash yashmad brahma sukhayam tvavanatam. One must practice austerity so that his existential position, one must practice austerity so that his existential position will be purified and he will achieve unlimited blissful life. Well, I don't think we're going to finish the chapter. We're only on verse 26, 25, and there's 42 verses. So I think we might go ahead and end it here. Let's read the next 3 verses. Finish the thought. Text 25. Material existence causes discontent in regard to fulfilling one's lusty desires and achieving more and more money. This is the cause for the continuation of material life, which is full of repeated birth and death. But one who is satisfied by that which is obtained by destiny is fit for liberation from this material existence. A Brahmin who is satisfied with whatever is providentially obtained is increasingly enlightened with spiritual power. But the spiritual potency of a dissatisfied Brahmin decreases as fire diminishes in potency when water is sprinkled upon it. Therefore, O king, from you the best of those who give charity. I ask only 3 paces of land. By such a gift, I shall be very pleased. For the way of happiness is to be fully satisfied to receive that which is absolutely needed. Sukadeva Goswami continued. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead had thus spoken to Bali Mahārāja, Bali smiled and told him, all right, take whatever you like. To confirm his promise to give Vāmanadeva the desired land, he then took up his water pot. So we'll stop there. Pick it up next week.
Isn't Prithu another incarnation of Krishna? Because I noticed he mentioned Vamana here mentioned Prithu
Mahārāja.
Yeah.
Yes. And we read about Prithu Mahārāja, I think in the 6th canto.
Okay.
That's
about right. Yeah.
And being a Kali Yugan citizen, I don't remember it hardly at all. But yeah, Prithu is I think he's described as a partial incarnation.
Okay.
And I don't really remember the circumstances surrounding Prithu. Does anyone help me out here?
I do not.
Prithu, I want to say that Prithu had something to do with look, because when I was reading these verses earlier, I reminded me of Prithu Mahārāja, and I wanted to try to remember who he was, what his pastimes were. Let's check out the 6th canto, see if it's in there.
Okay.
Appearance of the demon, the battle. Chitraketu, Parvati, Diti. No, not in the 6th canto. Let's go back to the 5th.
It looks like maybe 4th canto. I'm seeing 416. I'm doing a search real quick, seeing if I can.
Okay. Yeah, King Vena. Right. Yeah, I was thinking it had something to do with King Vena.
Okay, 415, King Prithu's appearance and coronation.
Yeah. And then he milks the earth because Vena, you remember King Vena was the very bad king.
Okay.
And he had basically
he was a descendant of Dhruva, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
The sages then called for Queen Mother Sunita, and with her permission, they installed Vena on the throne as master of the world. All the ministers, however, disagreed with this. It was already known that Vena was very severe and cruel. Therefore, as soon as all the thieves and rogues in the state heard of his ascendance to the royal throne, they became very much afraid of him. Indeed, they hid themselves here and there as rats hide themselves from snakes. When the king ascended to the throne, he became all-powerful with 8 kinds of opulences. Consequently, he became too proud. By virtue of his false prestige, he considered himself to be greater than anyone. Thus, he began to insult great personalities. When he became overly blind to his opulences, King Vena mounted a chariot and like an uncontrolled elephant began to travel through the kingdom, causing the sky and earth to tremble wherever he went. All the twice-born Brahmins were forbidden henceforward to perform any sacrifice, and they were also forbidden to give charity or offer clarified butter. Thus, King Vena sounded kettle drums throughout the countryside. In other words, he stopped all kinds of religious rituals. And so then I think the Brahmins somehow got together and they killed King Vena. And then from the remains of Vena, Prithu was brought forward. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe, and they churned the hands and legs.
Oh,
I'm kind
What's
of
that?
remembering that too.
so that one that they turned his limbs.
Yeah, right. And then created
From-
Prithu from
Yeah.
his remains. Yeah, it was
So I thought it was interesting how in this chapter it said that Prithu was not satisfied. Powerful kings like Prithu and Gaia achieved proprietorship over the 7 dweeps. Although they achieved that, they could not achieve satisfaction or find the end of their ambitions.
Yeah, I was thinking Prithu was a pretty cool dude, right?
But it was actually Krishna here using Prithu as an example. Yeah, that's very interesting. Well, Krishna is very clever.
Well, King Prithu's 100 horse sacrifices. Oh, and that's right. Remember, so Prithu was doing 100 Ashvamedha sacrifices. Indra was envious because he had done 100 sacrifices. He didn't want Prithu to do it, so he stole the horse.
Oh. Yeah.
There's so much that's happened that we've read about that I've
Forgotten already? I know.
forgotten. Yeah.
It's
An old country western song. I've forgotten more than you'll ever know about love. So, I've forgotten more than. Well, we just have to read it again one of these days. We'll finish it and then we'll
right.
read the Chaitanya Charitamrita and we'll come back for round 2.
Plus the Charitamrita is always quoting back from the Bhagavatam too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the stories about Dhruva and Prahlad. What were we saying, Kaya?
Oh, I think that would be wonderful because I didn't really take that much notes this time, and I'm kind of sad that I didn't actually write down some of the verses. So, yeah, if we want to go back through, that sounds wonderful.
All right, we'll chance for a few minutes. See what happens next week.
Okay. Haribo.
Very well. Namaste. All right, we need a tone.
Don't forget original sound.
Oh, yes. Thank you. There we go. Swarupaya Radha Krishna Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pracharine Deva Sesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshata Namaste. Raja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sari Gauranga Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama 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 Hare Jaya Jaya Śrīla Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Guru Jaya Jaya Śrīla Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Guru Haribol.